Welcome to episode 13 of the Quirky Monday Craftcast. My name is Kalisha, also known as Nadira Tani, anywhere online. This here camera hog is Kiva. She's the resident Jacoby. And the other one that you saw who does not want to stay on my lap is little Miss Tootie. And she is the resident some sort of Chihuahua terrier rat thing. But she's a cutie. She doesn't care about me right now. Alright, Kiva, you're hurting me. Off. Alright. So, welcome to another episode. Like I said, my name is Kalisha. You can find me anywhere online as Nadira Tani. I am coming to you today from my home in Central Florida. Today is Sunday, June 11th, 2017. And I have a little bit of stuff to share with you. When I was writing up my notes, I was like, oh man, there's like nothing on here. But I'll probably figure out some way to chitter chat on. What can you do? If this is your first time checking me out, thank you so much for giving my little Craftcast or space on the internet a try. I hope you like it. If this is not your first time and you're a returning viewer, thanks so much for coming back. I saw recently, being like in the last couple days, we hit 200 subscribers. So that is 18 kinds of crazy. Yay! Friends! So yeah. What do we want to talk about first? Normally my podcast, or rather I call it a craftcast because I do different things, but whatever. Normally it's a whole lot of yarn crafting. And recently I've been doing a bit more sewing. And this week I have even more different art forms to share with you. I have some spinning. I of course have some knitting. Do I have any crochet? No. I'm getting back into the crochet, Scout's honor. But I have some spinning. I have some knitting. I have some other crafty bits. Let me grab my notes. I have some finished objects, of course, as you do. And at the end of this episode, I have a poem that I want to share with you. More on that later. So we'll start off like we normally do with my finished projects. I have two, and one of them is completely finished, like ends all woven in and everything. The other one just came off the needles like an hour ago. So I haven't woven in any ends. So it's like 99% finished, but yes. So the first finished object that I have to share with you today is my bad penny top. I showed this as a mostly finished object last episode because all I had left to do was the neckline, which I decided to just knit, like I think I did 5 rows of stockinette and then just bound off with Jenny's surprisingly sketchy. Why do I always do that? It's not sketchy, it's stretchy. Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off. And so that the neckline rolled a little bit and it still sits like wide on my shoulders. And I like it. So it's all done. I just have to weave in, like, I think maybe there's like 6 ends or something. But yeah, this is my project for it actually is going into quite a couple different knit-alongs. But the main one is the Great Unravel 2017. And I'll put all of the details down here. And I'm also entering this into there's 2 different summer garment knit-alongs that I'm entering this into. So I'll put their information down here as well. So if you want to check them out, go ahead and knock yourself out. But This project was super simple. I did some modifications. The pattern calls for a ribbed neckline as well as ribbed cuffs on the sleeves, which I didn't do because I didn't feel like it. And I like how loosey-goosey it is. This yarn was unraveled from a sweater that I thrifted a while back, and I'm just glad that it's done. Yeah, I need like a special occasion to wear it out. So I can be like, oh, you like my shirt? I made it with these hands. Thanks. But yeah, so that is my first finished object. And I really love the color. Like, really, this was good. My second finished object, I am so proud of myself, as well as just excited with this project in general. Yeah, it is my Oakwood shawl, also known as the syncopated, what is it? Syncopated bees. Yay! It's done. So it is blocked. Gotta get the fro back. It's all blocked. It is all done. I put tassels on the end instead of the fringe that the pattern calls for, and I really like how that looks. Super proud of myself. But the last time I recorded, so I was in the midst of this bee section, this bee stitch section, last episode, and I was talking about going up a needle size to 3.75, I think, or 3.5, one of the two, because I wanted to get a new set of needles. So I ended up, no, it was 3.5 that I was going up to. So I ended up going up to the 3.5. I did not buy the new set of needles because I realized that I had recently purchased another set of 3.75s from Tuesday morning. So that was pretty good. So I didn't have to spend any more money. But yeah, so it's all finished. Last time I was talking about how I was losing steam on it, and I really was. And I think just the fact that I was talking about losing steam on this project like really lit a fire under my butt, because I really wanted to have this, you know, to take and take pictures of it on my school's campus next month. So that'll be happening. Super excited. So I will show you a little close-up. If you are really keen-eyed, you can see the difference in the bee stitch where I went from the 2.25 to the, no, I'm lying, the 3.25 to the 3.5. If not, then that's awesome. And then it ended with an I-cord bind off, which is a bind off I've never done. And it was supposed to be in like the same color that your last section is, but I decided to do it in the yellow, you know, as the contrast. And I'm so glad that I did it in the yellow because I love how it came out. But when I first got into the I-cord bind off, I was like, this is gonna take me forever and ever. But it's one of those bind offs that eventually you get kind of in the rhythm of it, and you just like put on a movie or something and just knit 3 stitches, put them back on the needle, knit 3 more stitches, put them back on the needle. It was really repetitive, but I'm glad that I did it because I really like how it came out. When I put a picture when I started the bind off on Instagram, and I was like, I don't know how this is gonna go, guys. And Kira from Knitting Annihilator, the Knitting Annihilator podcast, hey love, she was like, oh, it takes a long time, but it's totally worth it. And like all these other people were like, yeah, it's worth it, keep going. And I can attest, it is worth it. It is worth the extra time, that you take to create that bind off, because it is really pretty. So yeah, that is my Syncopated Bees shawl, aka my Oakwood shawl, because these are my college colors, blue and gold. Ooh, ooh. And yes, I think I might just keep it on. We'll see how long I can keep this on in the post-rain Central Florida cool. I need to hurry up. The light's dying. The light is dying. So that is all of my finished objects. The next two things I have to show. One of them y'all have already seen a bunch of times, so I'm just gonna show it to you real quick. This is my Hermione Takes a Break sock. And this is based on the Hermione's Everyday Sock pattern by Erica Lueder. And I have one finished, so you can see how it was supposed to look. I did 2 repeats of the pattern and then 6 rows of stockinette and repeated that up the leg. Now, if you look closely, let's get these lined up at the toe. If you look closely, you can see where I made a mistake on that second sock, because I only did 1 repeat of the pattern right here and was just like, that's fine. And then I got here and I realized my mistake, so I did the 2, and then I was like, oh crap, now they're all gonna be off. So instead of having like all of the stripe pattern, like the texture pattern stripes misaligned, that's the word, I decided to, after this one, I did 10 rows of stockinette, which then lined them back up. So now all of my texture sections are lined up with each other. I could have kept going as I was and it would have been perfectly fine, because my mom's not going to be like, what's wrong with this second sock? You know, so I could have, but I didn't. So there's that. After I finish the textured section that I'm currently on, I will be ready to put in the heel. I'm going to do a contrasting heel in the purple, and then the leg and the cuff, and they'll be done. And then I can mail them off to her, and she'll be super happy. I think that I'm gonna take a break here because it is getting kind of dark. I want to stay outside because it's really nice, but I'm kind of scared that the mosquitoes are going to come for me. So I decided to go ahead and come inside. So where were we? The other work in progress that I have, I actually started it today. And it is, I almost feel like I shouldn't even show this to you. It's a wee little beginning of a shawl. Look how tiny. Is that the back? That is the back. It goes this way. Eee. So this is the beginning of my Age of Brass and Steam kerchief. But I am hoping that all of this will give me a sizable shawl, you know. This, the Syncopated Bees, while I blocked it very aggressively, it's not as big as I would want it to be, but I also have never had a shawl in this size. So this is a new experience, and we're kind of feeling it out. So I'm hoping that this one will end up being larger than this one, but we'll see. And if this doesn't end up making it as large as I would want it to be, then I have, excuse my reach, this left over from my Bad Penny top, and I could add some more sections in this as a contrast color. So there you have it. And this is my second project for the Great Unravel 2017, which I think was extended, it was extended into July. Did I write down the actual extension date? Of course not, because that would have been too much like right. So yeah, it was extended to sometime in July. I'll put it like over there if I can find it. But yeah, that's gonna be project 2 for the Great Unravel 2017. And I know I said this in the last episode, but ever since unraveling these 2 tops for their fiber, I cannot go into the thrift store and not be like, can I unravel that? You know, Lord knows I don't need to do that anymore. I still have all this. But anywho, there's that. So I will be working on that. It is definitely going to be a back burner project because I want to finish my mom's socks and the black socks before I really, put in a whole lot of time on that shawl, because that's for me and these other things are not. So that's all of my works in progress that I have right now. I don't have any notable upcoming projects or things that I really want to talk about. I didn't really do, I bought things for crafty purposes, but nothing that's like worth writing home about. Nothing like, oh my gosh, I got this awesome thing. It's fine. Hey, Tootie. Can you be quiet? Thank you. So, on to my next section, which is going to be about spinning. So, evidently spinning is the fiber craft of choice for the summer because there are 3 different spin-alongs that I'm going to be participating in this year. There is the Spin for All 2017, and all the details I'll put over on the screen. There's a Spin for All 2017. I don't think it has a special name. I think it's just Spin Along. Spindle Along. And the Sith and Spin. Now, the Spin Along 2017 is being hosted. Scratch that. Now, the Spin Along 2017, I think it doesn't have any weight requirements, but you just have to spin and ply your yarn or your fiber. That's all you have to do. You just have to spin and ply it by the end of the spin along. And it is just for drop spindles, which is fine because that's all I have. And yeah, so there's that one. The spindle along is pretty much the same thing. Just spindle along. So just spin something on your drop spindle. Have a ball. And then the Sith and Spin is one where you are spinning and at the same time indulging in some sort of Star Wars media. Now, I decided to take part in the Sith and Spin because my husband and my brother-in-law had recently watched whichever the Star Wars movies recently came out. I don't know. But they were like, have you ever watched Star Wars? And I was like, no. What? No, I've never watched Star Wars. I can't believe you've never watched Star Wars. So I have decided that because Sith and Spin is a thing, I am going to watch at least the first Star Wars movie. If not more than that. Because I think the Sith and Spin goes into August. So that's plenty of time for me to, watch a few Star Wars movies, kind of see what the hype's about, because I've never seen any of them. I haven't even watched any of the new ones that recently came out. Um, like I don't really know any of the people. Nope. If you just like hollered out random Star Wars people, I'm pretty sure I just know that Princess Leia existed. Um, there's a brown guy called like Chewbacca, maybe. Uh, what was that one guy's name who was a Jedi? Luke? Was he a Jedi? I don't know. Am I making myself look stupid right now? Probably not, because I'm just happy in my ignorance. And then there's like Darth Vader. Darth Maul? Are they the same person? Are they related? Is Darth a title? Or is that a name? See? See why? That's why I'm gonna do Sith and Spin. So that when somebody says something about a character in Star Wars, I can be like, I know who that is. So yeah. So those are the 3 spin-alongs that I'm going to be participating in this year. So that all being said, I figured this would be a great time for me to kind of talk to you guys about how I came to spinning, how I got introduced to it, and everything like that. So my first introduction to spinning was, I'm sure I saw something on TV or online, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. You know, that will be a cool thing to learn, or a handy thing to learn to do as, you know, a crocheter or a knitter, to be able to make your own yarn. And I was like, yeah, that's cool. So at the time I was living in Alabama, and there was this art, like an art festival kind of thing, and it was called Panoply. And one day, I think it was like a 3-day festival, like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday type thing. And Lamar and I went to one of the days. We were walking around, and I see this lady spinning. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. I would love to learn that. And so she said, I can teach you. So she hands me this spindle made of a wooden dowel and a CD. Like you remember those CDs that you got in the mail to like get internet on your computer? I'm dating myself, aren't I? But like back when the internet came on a CD, she had an AOL CD as the wall, and then just a plain wooden dowel, and then like one of those metal cup hooks screwed in the top, and that was the spindle. So she showed me how to spin it, and then how to draft the fiber and everything like that. And I did it for a couple minutes, and then I was like, thank you so much for showing me that. That was really awesome. You have a great day. And so she was like, well, here, you can have this. And she gave me the CD spindle and a like this much like neon pink fiber. To practice with. So I was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So I took that home, and I spun. And I spun and I spun and I spun. And I really enjoyed it. And I was recently going through some old stuff, and I came across this, which is a bag that I put all of my spinning stuff in. So let me dump it all out here, and we'll take you on a trip down Kalicia's spinning memory lane. All right. So this Lord. This is the fiber that I spun. And it's looking really wonky because I wound it into a cake. And then I plied from it. But that is, I'll just show you here. That is the yarn, the single that I spun. It is super thick and thin. Look at that. But I was so proud of myself. And I still am. Like, this is pretty awesome for a beginner who's never spun anything before and who spun it using a handmade spindle made with a CD. So there's that. After I got this fiber, after I spun through this, I went, there was another kind of artist walk. It was called Stroll Around the Square, and they had it downtown in the square around the courthouse. It's like the third Thursday of every month during the summer. And there was a vendor there who sold fiber. So I got a yellow, like, I don't even know. How was this fiber prepared? I don't even think it was really prepared. I think it was just kind of like a bunch of fiber in a bag. But this is the yellow that I bought. There you go. And yeah, I spun that, and it's all kinds of crazy. Like, look what is happening here. Poor choices. That's what's happening there. Look at that. But there you go. So I spun through that bit, and then I was wanting to get, you know, some more fiber. So there was a thrift store. And I feel like, side note, I feel like so many of my crafting supplies and adventures start in the thrift store. But it is such a wonderful place. But so there's a thrift store that I always went to, and this one particular night I went to the thrift store, and there was this huge like dream catcher, and the thing was like this big around. And instead of like the webbing that you normally see inside of a dream catcher, this one had like, it was woven, but it had strips of like wool woven through it. So I looked at that and I said, I bet I can spin that. So I bought it. I'm pretty sure the dream catcher was like between $5 and $10, but it gave me this. Oh wow, that's blown out. Here we go. It gave me all of this, which is kind of, it feels kind of felted almost. It's really hard to draft, so I'm not, and I don't know what any of this fiber is. I only know that it's actually like natural fiber because I did a burn test on it. But yeah, so I had this ball of like whitey cream kind of color. I have this of the dark brown. And then I have this reddish brown. And I think that's all that came from, oh, wait, no. There's also this, like, kind of like a coffee with milk color. And that all came in the dream catcher. So what I ended up doing was I had watched all these videos on how to prepare fiber, and I was getting used to spinning from Rolags. So I started preparing this one into Rolags and spinning from them. And I also prepared this one and spun from this. Now, all of the prepared ones that I had of this, I've already spun, or I had already spun. And I have, this is kind of everywhere just because I have it all spread out in front of me. But this is the finished yarn, the finished single of the dark brown. And then I applied the dark brown with the pink. And I spun some of the red, like reddish brown, and I applied that with the yellow. So I have all of these. These are all of my current hand spuns. And they had really like gone into wherever, like the closet, back end of the closet. So they've just been like hibernating, and I completely forgot about them until I wanted to get back into spinning recently. So now I just kind of have to figure out what I want to do with these. So those are the finished ones I have. And then I have a couple spindles that have fiber on them. I have this one, and this is some more of that red orange fiber. And this spindle is one of my handmade ones. It doesn't spin real well, and I think that's because I made the whorl too small and too thick. But I made it out of Fimo clay, and this was made probably like maybe 5-6 years ago. And so yeah, there's that. And this is the one that I was spinning, or this is the fiber that I was spinning from the Rolags. And then I have a whole nother bag, and I did a white one in there from that, whatever that is. So there's those. And I do have one fiber that I like actually bought from a yarn shop, like went in and bought fiber instead of getting it from some creepy old dream catcher. But it's this. And this is a bat that I got from a yarn shop in Alabama. And look at those pretty blues. So this would be so much better if it had sparkle in it. I don't remember what the fiber content is, but it's very soft. And I had started spinning this on this spindle. Excuse the fact that it doesn't have a hook because I stole it and put it on my new drop spindle. But I had started spinning this onto here. And yeah, so this is my only like fancy fiber, but I'll roll that back up and put it aside. So that is my current, well, that's most of my current spinning, stash. Oh, I didn't tell you how I made this spindle. I made this one. This is a wooden dowel, which I put through a pencil sharpener so that it has the tip. Let me show you on my hair. There you go. And then the top was like a cup hook, just like this one. And then the whorl here is one of those tires for like if you make like toy trucks. That's what that is. And it also doesn't spin as long, and I think that's again because the whorl might be too small or too narrow. So what I did was, in light of all these spin-alongs that are happening this summer, I thought, you know, I could go out and buy a spindle. I could order one online, or go to one of the local shops here sells them. But there's just something about being able to make it yourself. So I watched a video on YouTube about making spindles out of Fimo clay, and I will put the link or the title somewhere. But I decided to try my hand at making a Fimo clay spindle again. So I have the wooden dowels, and I made, oh, the light over there is super bright. I made Fimo clay whorls. Now, this one you can see is a little wobbly, but I haven't tried using this particular one yet. But what you would do, you roll out the Fimo clay. I use the circle cookie cutter. Cut it, mark the center, poke it, bake it, and then you put it on your spindle. So there you have most of your spindle action there. And then you get like a cup hook, put it in there. You're pretty much good to go. So here is my current spindle. So I have the whorl. It's made, using the same shape, the same size cookie cutter, but this one had like a rippled edge, which I like because it helps to hold the yarn in place as I'm spinning. So let's see if I can show you how it spins. I think maybe I'll put a weight on the end or something like that so that I can spin it and it doesn't do all of that dancing. Not sure. But yeah, so that's what I'll be spinning on for the Spin for All 2017, the Spindle Along, and Sip and Spin. I'm really, really excited to get back to spinning. This is what I spun the other night, and I think it came out really well. It's not as crazily thick and thin as the yellow and the pink, like my first tries, which if it was, I wouldn't be surprised because I haven't spun in like a long time. There's one last yarn that I spun. I had a bat from that same yarn shop in Alabama, and it was like My Little Pony colored. Really, really pretty. And I spun the whole thing, and then I plied it with a white Knit Picks palette. And I'm not entirely sure where I put that ball. So if I find a picture of it, I'll put in a picture here because I really liked it. But anyway, back to this. So my plan with this is to spin this bag. Now this bag is about, it's roughly 50 grams of fiber. And the plan is going to be to spin all of this, like the coffee with milk color, spin all of this as a single, and then spin all of, you can probably see it in the bag, all the rest of these browns and golds, like I'm going to put them in color order, and I'm thinking about blending them together so that they go seamlessly from color to color. I'm thinking about that. Haven't really worked that out yet, but spinning all of this as the second single and then plying them together. That's what I think I'm going to do. That's the plan. So yeah, so that's my plan for my summer spinning. And then I also have, I guess I do have an acquisition. Some friends and I went to Tampa last weekend. No, Memorial Day weekend. I think it was 2 weekends ago. But we went to Tampa, and since we were there, I was like, I have to get some sort of yarn thing, for a souvenir. So I went to a yarn shop. We went to, I forget the name of the yarn shop, but I'll put it here. I'll also put a picture. because this yarn shop, it was so nice. And the owner, like the owners were super sweet. They gave me a tour of the store, like everything. Like if we lived closer to Tampa, I mean, we're only like an hour and a half away, but I really don't think that I can justify being like, I'm going to drive an hour and a half to go to a yarn store. But if we're ever in Tampa again, please believe I'll be there. But, excuse me. But what I did pick up was 2 bags of like leftovers, because as one who's just getting back into spinning, I didn't want to be like, let me go buy this whole braid and then like screw it up or something. So I just got like 2 bags of leftovers, and this is like, all of this came in one bag, and then there's like all kinds of little bits in there. So yeah, that's an acquisition. So after I finish spinning the browns, then I'm going to spin this blue one, and then we'll see what other kind of party on my spindle comes up after that. So yeah, that's everything spinning wise. Wish me luck with this spinning. One thing that I remember, and when I was spinning the other day, it really like came back to me, was how relaxing it is to spin. Like when you're drop spindling, you're spinning the spindle and you're just pulling out a little bit of yarn at a time, or a little bit of fiber at a time, and letting the twist go up, and it's just, it gets to the point where you're just really like meditative in the actions, and I miss that. So I'm excited to introduce that back into my crafting rotation. So yeah, it's my spindle, and I'm really liking this one. I think I've almost gotten it down with the handmade spindle. I do want to try making one more, because I'm not quite loving this dowel, this particular dowel. But yeah. So yeah, I put a video of me spinning on Instagram, and I may just insert some at the end of this video just so that you can see how this one works. But yeah, that's everything with my spinning. I am super leaning towards buying my first braid at some point this summer, either from one of my local yarn stores or online. Considering the local option, because one of my yarn shops in this area, the owner has alpaca, and she sells their fiber. So it's like actual local fiber from local animals that I could buy, which is pretty cool if you ask me. So yeah. So that is everything crafting wise. I'm going to shove all the rest of my fiber back in this bag, and we'll get ready to move on to the next section that I told you about at the beginning of this video. Okay, so at the beginning of the video, I said that I had a poem I wanted to share with you. I'm going to do a pre-speech. And the concept of pre-speech actually comes from my college poetry group called Art and Soul. Art and Soul. That's my family. Forever. Forever, ever. Forever, ever. Anyway, Art and Soul was a poetry group, is a poetry group that I was a part of in college. Like all 4 years straight through, they were my family. And like everybody was a writer. Everybody was not super emotional, but just like so ready to tap into whatever emotion that they were, dealing with at that time. Like, whenever we had shows and we were reading our poetry, it was almost like you're getting up on stage and just sharing your business with the whole campus. True story. But it was such a special experience. And a lot of times I look back on my time in school and my time as part of like an active member of Art and Soul, and I think, what would my experience have been like if I wasn't in Art and Soul, And I really think it would have sucked because my first and like deepest involvement with depression, does that make sense? The first time that it really touched me was when I was in college. And if I didn't have the writing and the poetry, I don't know how all of that crap would have come out. Like, I recently found some of my old poetry books and I was like, dang man, I was working through some stuff. And just being able to write the poems and to write out that emotion and to purge it in that way was something that was completely and utterly special. All that being said, of course, when you graduate, it's different. With me personally, I miss having that regular access to other artists, who are in my same kind of lane, if that makes sense. When I was at school, I was always surrounded by poets. There was always somebody who was like, I wrote this poem, I want to read it to you. How do you think I can make it better? Is this a performance piece? Is this a written piece? What do you think? So we're always in that mindset of constantly creating and constantly honing our craft. So that when I graduated, it was almost like the concentrated amount of inspiration dissipated. So what ended up happening was I wrote less and less and less. And I'm always thinking back about poetry like poetry is a person who was part of my life and who is part of my life. And I think of how much I miss them. And I think of how much history that we have that I want to bring them back into my life. So I bought this. I'm just going to hold things over here. This is my current poetry journal. And as you can see, it doesn't look like it's been written in much, which is true. I've only written a handful of poems in here. April was National Poetry Writing Month. And the thing with National Poetry Writing Month is you write a poem every day. And I wanted to challenge myself to do that, but I also didn't want to stress myself out with, oh, you have to write a poem, because I didn't want to write something silly just to say that I wrote something. And it turned out that April started with me feeling really, really low. And poetry has definitely been that thing that has always allowed me to explore my lowness and to look at it and to push those things out of me. And so I started writing again. And maybe a week or so ago, I had a conversation with one of my friends who was also a member of Art and Soul, and we were just talking about the good old days. Like, you know how old people get together and they're like, oh, do you remember back in our day? That's kind of how the conversation was. But just reminiscing on how awesome it was and how important poetry was to both of us. And back in Art and Soul, we had this thing where we would give each other assignments. And the assignment could either be, well, the assignment really could be anything. But most commonly, you would get an assignment that would be like, write this type of poem with this, about this topic. Or you would get, write a poem using the words this, this, and this. And so as we were talking, I told him, I said, hey, give me a poetry assignment because I want to get back into it. And he was like, all right. And he told me to write a poem about sunsets using the words horizon, epiphany, and orifice. And I was like, okay. Now, the thing about assignments is you can't just partially do it. Like, when I was writing this poem, I had a really hard time fitting in the word orifice because it's not a word that I use in my vocabulary for real. So it was hard, and I didn't want to use the word, and I was like, oh, this sucks. Oh, it's going to be like I'm forcing it in. And the more that I worked on it, I was able to get it to fit. And I think that was like the whole purpose of us using that or doing that exercise, is broadening the way that you construct your poetry to be able to speak on a wider variety of topics as well as a wider variety of ways. So I wrote a poem, and I'm going to read it to you. And I'm really nervous about it, which is weird because I used to do this all the time. Like, really. Anyway, so this poem doesn't have a title. And I'm going to show you real quick how it worked up. So we have this with the words and some workings. Then we have some more workings, working it together, trying to figure out where the poem was going to go. And then we have the poem. And then we have where I rewrote it neatly so that I could read it. So, yeah. This is my assignment. Oh my gosh. Okay, this is the poem. I was born full of dreams, ideas, and epiphanies, words, wishes, and possibilities. I was a nebula, beautiful, infinity in my own eyes. I was grand, building worlds of imagined beings. Nothing was impossible. Everything swirled within me, and moments expanded. They turned months, turned years. They became heavy, laced and coated in melancholy. They embraced me. Feigned care, come rest here, they whispered. Open arms and jagged bones, they surrounded me, crushed me with their gravity, covered everything, and pressed all time and space from every orifice. They tightened and tightened and tightened until I was born, full of burning and light, death conversations, scars, tears, and broken places. I was brilliant. Surprised by my own resilience, I breathed again, burned back the dark and shone brightly. Jagged bones turned to dust. I am born, full of dreams, ideas, and epiphanies, words, wishes, and possibilities, hope and hope and hope. I am beautiful, infinity in my eyes, carrying memories of the pressing. The sun sets, and darkness still creeps at the horizon, but I have learned how to rise again. That's my piece. I hope you liked it. I guess I want to tell you about how that piece came about. At first, I wanted to write a poem about a sunset, just about a sunset. And then I started thinking about how sunsets can be kind of a death in sort of a way. And then I started thinking about, well, how do stars die and how are stars born? And of course, me and my space loving self started reading up about that. And then I learned that stars are created in nebulas. And nebula is basically a whole bunch of gas out in space. And as those gases are compressed, they heat up. And they get to a point where the pressure and the heat is too much and they explode. But they explode and become a star. And then that star is, shining and burning, and it's almost like it died but then was reborn in kind of a way. And then I thought about, or I read about how stars die, and it turns out that even in their death, stars are amazing. They either grow bigger until they've used out all of their fuel and use out everything, and then they shrink down. Or they are like these huge stars that explode into supernovas, and they can either cause a black hole or a neutron star. And even through all of those different changes that stars go through, it's very hard for that star to actually die into nothing. And I kind of lined that kind of theory up to, my experiences as a person thus far, where as a child, I was very creative. I was always making things, always creating new things, always coming up with something different, drawing or painting or writing stories. There was so much that I was creating. And I got to a point where the pressures of life were too heavy. And I think that pressure and that crushing and that depression that I started feeling is what eventually gave way to a brighter me. Because now I look at things or when I see downswings coming or anything like that, I can take them and understand that this will only stay if I stay. This will I have to be able, or I have to be willing to continue to breathe and to continue to shine as much as I can, and burn back that darkness. And I have to accept that sunsets still happen. The darkness will still come. But I have to know that with every sunset, there has to be a sunrise. And in a nutshell, that was this poem. So thanks, David, for the assignment, because I'm glad that it brought this poem to me. So before I get any more personal and emotional, I would like to bring a new thing to my Craftcast. Because I know that I want to get back into writing and I want to do more writing, I want to involve you guys in that. So if you are so inclined, put a poem assignment in the comments. It can be write this type of poem on this topic, or write a poem using these words. And If you do the write a poem using these words, I would say no more than 5 words. Yes, please. No more than 5 words. And if you want to do the write a type of poem, there's a website called shadowpoetry.com. I think it's shadowpoetry.com. If it's not, I'll put the actual URL down at the bottom so that you can go and see like different types of poems. I don't know if you really want to get that involved in this process, but there is a website with like a bunch of different types of poems, and you can say, hey Kalisha, I want you to write a poem, this type of poem using this topic. I want you to write a poem, this type of poem using these words. I am putting it in your hands. So leave me comments with your poem assignments and I will get writing. So thank you so much in advance for helping me get back on my poetry bike. Thank you for listening. I hope you liked the poem. It was good for me. I hope you liked the different projects that I talked about today. Yes. So thanks again so much for being here. Thanks for getting up to 200, I think it was like 203 subscribers. Thumbs up. Whoop, whoop. Yep. Good luck with anything that you are planning to do. I hope that this coming week is filled with good things and positive experiences and moments of joy for you. Bye.